Welcome to Headliners, a show produced by the Vermont Standard. We're here today with local school board chair, Keri Bristow. Lots to talk about, and we're very excited to have her here with us today. So you must be breathing a huge sigh of relief at the passing.
I would say that I feel like we're halfway there.
Halfway there.
We've done our part. We've gotten a bond, we've gotten approvals, we have an approved plan. Now we need the state to do their part.
I'm kind of amazed that you're saying you're halfway there. This is such a heavy lift that I hope you at least took a weekend to say, like, okay, that's a bit of chunk of this.
Oh yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, we were all thrilled, absolutely thrilled,
yeah,
by not only that it passed, but that it passed very nicely. But now it's up to us to keep the pressure up, to keep restating what we've said all along, that we are a regional hub. We have 7 towns, an 8th town that most of their students come here, and we have 20 other communities that send their children to us. And it changes from year to year. This year there's 21 or 22 different communities sending students to our school. There's been as many as 28. Depends on the year.
That's a huge responsibility.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And we want to serve them well, and we believe we are serving them extremely well at this point.
What do you think the difference was that allowed it to pass now versus the last time?
Well, I think a lot of groundwork was laid that, this can't go on. We knew that there were building problems, including most likely PCBs, and there are asbestos tiles in the floors still. And, the building is having more and more catastrophic failures with boilers going and sewer lines being plugged up that are just too old, right, embedded in concrete walls and concrete slabs. I think the first time around, it was the first attempt to get a sizable bond in, 50 years.
Yeah.
It was very controversial for some to think that a school could cost that much money, and why did it have to be that expensive? And a lot of it is infrastructure. It's not necessarily pretty walls. That's the end stuff.
Right.
But it became contentious, and after 2 years, when we decided to go back into it, we decided to take more of a grassroots focus and try to have people in each community of the 7 towns who would be point people to know which groups to have a meeting with, and have others fan out and bring together neighbors and friends to share the information at smaller functions, but groups that were, maybe receptive, maybe not. I'd say on almost every meeting with the towns themselves, there were people there that were against it, and there were people there that were for it. And it was, really it's the cost. It's not that I don't think anyone's against education, right, but they are questioning or concerned about why it's so expensive.
Which is fair.
It is
Right.
fair. And so, when you have a conversation with a contentious person, you have to simply say, thanks for your input. I'm not necessarily in agreement with you on it, but we appreciate hearing from you. We had done a survey of thousands of people, through the listservs, by the way, mostly, to distribute the link, to get a survey that was anonymous unless you wanted to put your name on it. And we had lots of information to start out with, and one of them was cost, and one of them was too fancy. The school was too fancy, or perceived to be too fancy. Mm-hmm. And, the other one was, I can't afford this. I'm a senior citizen on a fixed income. So right. We knew that was that. And there was another strand that said, I didn't like the attitude of, sort of you're telling me what I need. And so we heard that message and we took it to heart and agreed that we'll just go in and say this is what the best we can do. I mean, we whittled it down, we took things out, we've hoping that the state will put in at least 20%, which does mitigate the overall cost. And that's what we can do.
Were you involved with the design as well?
No, I was not. That was another crew of people.
Wow.
They began about 10 years ago talking about building a new school, and then that group of school board members and citizens came together to make the push, and I came on the board just before the first bond vote. So I was really, actually, in the beginning, I was on the teacher side of that, and then I moved to another district for 5 years, and then came back on as a board member as the excitement was mounting to try to get that first bond in '24.
It's a huge community effort.
I would say across all the communities there was a lot of effort made, yes.
I mean, how many committees, how many people do you think have been involved with this process?
Oh, I'd say 60 or 70.
That's amazing.
Yeah, quite a few citizens in the towns and also the board members.
So what happens next? What do we expect next? When do we see the cranes? Is that what we're looking to see? Or there's, like you said, you're halfway there, so I'm guessing there's more legislation.
Yes, there
legislative
is. Yes.
Steps to take too.
There are. Okay. So the legislature has to change some of the ways that they're structuring debt for schools. In the past, if you had to take on a bond, even if it was a small bond, it didn't count into what is called the per pupil spend. And you're allowed to spend up to a certain threshold level. And if you go over that level, you pay $2 for every dollar that you spend. And so we tend to have our budgets pretty close to that threshold, if not slightly over. So we do pay penalties. We have paid penalties, and we are paying a penalty this year, but it's not a big penalty.
Right.
However, in 2024, for some reason that no one can quite articulate, they put in capital debt as well, would go against your per pupil spend. So we
that
have...
makes no sense.
I could conjecture on that. I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
Because actually our two legislators, Allison and Charlie, put forward a bill that is in the flux right now to decouple capital spending from the per pupil educational costs. And there's hope and optimism that that will pass, which will relieve any town that has a debt right now, that had to take on debt. I know Colchester, they had to take on debt for similar reasons.
Right.
We have to take on more debt this summer to deal with sewer pipes again and buying 2 boilers because a boiler failed. The 1958 original boiler
I can't imagine
failed.
why that failed. Yeah.
And so we have a backup boiler because you don't only want to have one. So they're going to buy 2 small, very efficient boilers, and then those boilers, when the new school gets built, they can go to a couple of the other elementary schools who have aging boilers.
It's amazing to hear how this all works out. What does the community need to do to support this right now?
Well, we have asked the community to write letters to our legislators, and they have done that, to say, we urge this. We urge you to get this decoupling bill, and we urge you to also support our school, the fact that we want to build a new school. So we've had good response, and I know that when we were speaking with Charlie Kimball recently, he said, everybody in Montpelier knows that you've passed a bond and that you need a new school. There is no doubt of the need.
Right.
It's the weather, it fits in with the new plan.
It's amazing that you got this far.
Seriously. It was a lot of work.
So I want to talk about some things that you're excited about it, because I understand, the push isn't done. We're still like pushing the boulder up the hill.
Right.
But you can at least see at the top of the hill is this new building, the building on the hill, let's say, or by the water. What are some of the parts that you're most excited about seeing being built?
In the school?
Yeah.
Well, I think it will be, a building that will stand time and as changing educational means of teaching and learning. It will be a building that's responsive to those needs. It will have a wonderful theater for our wonderful theater program.
Love that, yeah.
And with much improved systems, because again, they're old systems in there. No, they're not as old as the school, but they're going to be well upgraded. There will be smaller rooms and bigger rooms, so you could hold seminar type classes, and you could also have small groups working in smaller spaces. There's plans to launch some educational pathways that the principal is working on with his team and will be rolled out in the next year or so around different ways students might want to focus on engineering and STEM, for example, or international education or science-based pathways that are more focused.
Right.
So those are some things that really excite me, and to have a beautiful campus with, hopefully other communities that right now have choice as to where they send their students might consider that this is going to be a great facility with great teachers. We already have great teachers, and I believe that. I'm not saying that because I didn't. Because
you were one of those great teachers.
Well, I don't always think some of my former colleagues were maybe, at their peak. But what I see and observe and hear from, the school board side of things, I think education is going very, very well in our district, across the district. Our literacy scores are among the highest in the state, as are our math, due to concentrated efforts, targeted efforts to improve those scores. And there's marked difference from the way it was. It's very hard to get scores to change. And, this district has effectively done it.
Has the number of students that are there decreased, increased?
It's pretty stagnant.
It's pretty steady.
Yeah.
Yeah. So given the fact that you have more things to do, what are we going to see next? I mean, can you start building, or, what's the timeline, or do you have to wait for these other legislative things to happen first?
We have to have a series of discussions with various parts of the state. So actually, in the 2 weeks, there's a meeting with the Secretary of Education and the Undersecretary of Education and one of the finance peoples that some of the board, I will not be attending, but other board members will, along with our finance manager, to really say, okay, let's get down to brass tacks.
Right.
What do we need to do? Act 73 itself laid out a number of educational quality standards, as well as how you can get more construction aid if you follow certain building-based requirements that we would like to see in any new construction. And so we're working very hard to comply with both of those things. And so those are things that we're going to talk with the Secretary of Education and her team to say how, where do we go from here?
Well, I also think, and that's why I wanted to get a sense of time frame, because it took so much to get this yes in the community, that I also think expectations are going to be huge, and balancing them so people don't, this isn't something that happens overnight and all of a sudden you said yes, so when's the new building going to appear?
Yes.
And you want to make sure that the community understands the expectation of how long this takes and when they're going to see things. And so do you have a sense of what you're going to say, or how you're going to handle those communications?
Yes, and we have a timeline in place, which includes permits and engineering and all of those things that have to happen to get ready to build. So the best case scenario would be the decoupling happens, school construction comes back in, promised, they're not going to have money in 26, but that they promise they will have money and give us that promissory note or whatever agreement to say, yes, we're going to fund your school. We could break ground next spring.
Next spring?
Yes.
Okay, so then where do the students go?
The students will stay put.
Okay.
And we'll continue having to put in fixes to keep them there. There's possibilities of certain parts of the building that may temporarily have to close, but Sherry Sousa and her team have a plan for if we have to move kids to other spaces. One of which could be the Union Arena, for example. They could set up classes in there. And then there are other spaces, in the past they've used Billings Farm during the pandemic. Perhaps some buildings, some spaces across the street at the senior center. The worst case is we have to buy into trailers on the lawn. We don't want to do that.
Right.
It's very expensive and just demoralizing.
This is just logistically huge.
It is, but we're lucky that we have a place to put our kids.
Right.
They can stay put and just keep maintaining.
Fingers crossed. What are you going to do to sell? I mean, like when it opens up, how are you going to? Are you going to do like when you dig into the ground? You're going to have some big celebration.
Oh, I am sure there will be quite a celebration.
I would love to help with that.
Okay.
Let's do something big to celebrate the digging in and the opening up.
No, I think my plan is if I get reelected next March, because I think I finish my second term next March, I would like to stay in it until there's at least a hole.
The big dig.
And I can feel
the big dig of Woodstock.
I feel like my work is done.
Oh my God. Won't you feel great to be able to go, I helped do that?
It is. It's exciting. Yeah.
It's a really beautiful legacy.
Yeah.
I would be incredibly proud of myself.
Yeah. Well, it was a team effort. It's not any one of us.
I understand.
We worked together and balanced each other out at times. I wanted to just briefly talk a little bit about the BOCES effort in the state, which has been renamed as a CESA, CESA.
That's not any easier. I kept saying botching.
I know. Collaborative Educational, the S, Services Association.
Why don't they make those things easy?
I don't know, because they
just say what it is.
I know. Well, BOCES is a very known name outside of Vermont.
Yeah.
So our district helped put together the first one, which was called a BOCES.
Can you explain what it is?
Yeah, it's a collaborative effort to do regional bargaining. For example, it could be for transportation, it could be for purchasing. In this case, primarily it started out to regionalize special education training because it's difficult in this state to get training. They haven't had a coordinator at the state level for some years. And so there was, differing needs now in students, a lot higher needs, and they're not getting trained that way in their undergraduate program to deal with some of the higher level needs. So Sherry Sousa and the superintendent, I believe in Springfield, started looking to how can we regionalize this and save our money so that person doesn't go to you and to you and to you, but you all come together. It can be done remotely and we can get the higher level trainings that we needed. But if you look at like the New York or the Massachusetts model, it extends into lots of other things. Healthcare, bargaining at a higher level, so that in Vermont, Vermont has one healthcare option for teachers. But we could think bigger than that and look at that differently. So that is hope. It has saved a lot of money for the various districts who need to have this professional development.
Right.
It's not something they can say, no, well, we're just going to skip it this year. They need it. And so now the cost is spread out amongst a lot of districts, and we're called the Southeast Regional District for the superintendent. It's done by superintendencies, and they're all over the state. So I think there's 6 or 7 of them in the state. And so if everybody established one, it helps everybody. And so just a couple of days ago, the state has come out with a statement around, let's take this system up and let's look at this first one to be the model, and in fact, perhaps even the facilitators. And they've put some legislation out that just came out around that they want these service associations to be responsible for organizing, or starting with organizing and facilitating committees to look at the feasibility, but they're going to use and would like help from the current one that's already approved by the legislature. So that's an exciting movement forward as we look at how do we lower costs. I mean, that's
Right.
really what it's all about.
So
Lower
it's
costs
lowering long term, not just about building.
and giving
Yeah.
quality, quality addressing with quality people to help all the educators who need that type of education and other services.
And I want to thank you because your passion for this is contagious. And I think that may have gone a long way to actually getting this passed,
Well, thanks.
It really is very clear. So thank you.
Well, I'm committed.
Amen. This has been fantastic sitting here and talking to Keri Bristow, really getting an understanding of the landscape of the new school and what it means to our community. We'll keep you informed, and we'll probably have her back again and others involved in the process along the way. We look forward to seeing you again for the next edition of Headliners produced by the Vermont Standard.